Here is your WESN News on the hour. I'm Naomi Magnish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. ASP Dixon challenges PSC over COP selection process. Activist seeks transparency in AG's legal fees. Robbery suspect caught despite wig disguise. Prison officer arrested for drunk driving and misconduct. And Las Lomas police investigate guest house assault. Now for the details. President of the TTPS Social and Welfare Association, ASP Gideon Dixon, has received court approval to challenge the Police Service Commission over the process for appointing a commissioner of police. Dixon claims the PSC unfairly deemed his MBA ineligible despite its prior acceptance under existing policies. He alleges unequal treatment compared to other candidates and procedural violations by the PSC. Dixon is also challenging a separate decision related to his exclusion from the Deputy Commissioner selection process. Social activist Ravi Balgobin Maharaj is demanding the Attorney General's office fully disclose details of legal fees paid to private attorneys in 2024, totaling $158 million. Maharaj alleges the ministry withheld critical details, citing safety and defamation concerns. His legal team argues this refusal undermines public accountability as taxpayer funds must withstand scrutiny. If the information isn't provided, Maharaj plans to pursue judicial review. Police in Princestown arrested a man who robbed a mini-mart while disguised in a long black wig. The suspect, known to the victim, stole cigarettes and $676 before fleeing into a nearby bushy area. Officers apprehended him shortly after, recovering all stolen items. A prison officer was detained after refusing a breathalyzer test during a traffic stop on the Taruba Link Road. The officer, allegedly intoxicated, resisted arrest and behaved disorderly, even kicking one of the officers. He later failed sobriety and breath tests at the station and required medical attention for a wrist injury. Police are investigating a report of sexual assault involving a 34-year-old woman at a St. Helena guest house. The woman alleged she was assaulted by two men after leaving a bar with them. She was taken to the Mount Hope Women's Hospital for medical care. Investigations ongoing. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi Magnish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Attention everyone! The Office of the Prime Minister Communications has launched a brand new WhatsApp channel designed to keep you informed and connected like never before. Get real-time updates, breaking news, and important information directly from the source. With our WhatsApp channel, you'll always know what's happening when it's happening. Joining is easy. Use your phone camera, scan this QR code, tap follow, and that's it. You're in. Be sure to tap the notification bell to never miss an update. Stay informed, stay empowered. Join the conversation with the Office of the Prime Minister Communications WhatsApp channel today.
WESN.
It seems as though this issue of the lost pirogue, which to me, looking at one of the pictures, looks a little bit bigger than any pirogue we would have in local waters, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm not someone who spends a lot of time on the sea. Potentially for this very reason, more on that in a bit. This has become an issue of sorts. maybe not too big of an issue, but I think potentially it might highlight the fact that, and this is something that maybe you have noticed in other topics before. We spoke about it with regards to the opposition leaders' comments and the use of the word woke, and those issues that are important in America, and even Poiint admitted some of these issues, they're not relevant here. So a lot of the question was, well, who actually wrote that statement? Now, I don't necessarily disagree with the contents of the statements, but I had to admit, for the most part, I don't think the average politician here understands that topic very deeply, if at all. And then now, what else do we see politicians speak about, technical topics that they may not fully understand? Because I will argue that for the most part, even politicians who have served in national security ministry as a minister or junior minister, their understanding of the topic of some of these relevant technical issues, I think, is limited at best, non-existent at worst, and ultimately, most politicians generally, we've lamented about things like agriculture, business, ease of doing business, education. There seems to be so many things that they don't necessarily understand. Ironically, there are some ministers who have a reasonable grasp of their portfolio. I would argue Minister of Health, Terence Dale Singh. I know he has his critics. I am not one of them. I would also argue Minister of Public Utilities. Foreign Affairs and CARICOM Affairs, that's diplomacy. That's a technical function, but that's kind of within the wheelhouse of a politician to some degree already. It's not like public utilities where you're looking at electricity and water. It's not like health where, you know, it's medical, it's healthcare service, healthcare administration, etc., etc. And of course, national security is not just crime fighting and border security, but the mundane aspects like maintaining ocean-going vessels and police vehicles and having programs in order to support K9 units and mounted units, potentially air units, at least once upon a time. Now you have to integrate drones and so on and so on. So it's not just military operations, but the mundane things like logistics and servicing, you know, works and transport, maintenance and servicing, and so on and so on. Now, the opposition MP, Rudal Munilal, he is slamming the government for the situation, and I could see where it's a bit of a low-hanging fruit. It seems hapless because essentially well, that's the word used, right? The Coast Guard is towing a vessel. Let me just I want to get the specific. Only in TNT, under Hines and Young, could the Coast Guard tie a boat and then lose it. I mean, it seems like a rookie mistake, right? If you are a boat owner and you tie up a boat and then you lose it, that's somewhat catastrophic to you. This is not something that's just an everyday. It's not like you trip and you fall and you say, oops, right? And this is a case where you had about 5 dead bodies and now potentially their fate might be lost. To some degree, the families will never know what's going on. We wouldn't know what's going on, why they washed up on our shores, you know, if they were involved in anything that we need to be concerned about or not. So it seems like a bit of a bungle. Just want to say that, though, there have been cases where the U.S. Navy, contrary to what you might read on the internet, the U.S. Navy is the biggest with regards to tonnage Navy in the world. China has more ships, but they're smaller. They're not necessarily as capable with long-range, high-endurance, deep-water, ocean-going expeditions or navigation. They have had ships on the tow and lost them. So, at times, they've recovered the ships. At times, they have not. So, to some extent, a pirogue whose condition was not under the control of the Coast Guard, sinking in open ocean. I mean, to some extent, depending One could argue it was a miracle that it didn't sink long before it reached us. Now, there's always the possibility that in this environment we have to ask the question, was there any negligence involved? But I would, and yes, to some degree, was there incompetence involved? But it's not something that I would necessarily go straight to, because, again, it's not like we do rescue and recovery operations every day. I don't know what equipment the Coast Guard did or did not have in this case. I can't go and say we have a problem with, I know I say we have a problem with accountability. One of the things we say we have a problem with is available equipment. We're seeing it with regards to the fire service, with regards to the police service. Do we expect the Coast Guard to have everything available to them? And like I said, we're a small island. This is not a thing that we do on a regular basis. And bigger navies have lost vessels being towed before, depending on the condition of said vessels. So, yes, we could question with regards to how things went, but I think MP Moonilal is overplaying his hand a little bit because he's making a very critical assumption. He's saying, well, this boat has to come from somewhere, and the United States DEA, FBI, and Interpol would have an interest, because the assumption would be that it's drugs. Of course, you could also put the ATF in there if it's guns, maybe. But the thing is, a situation like this, what are we concerned about? We're concerned about ships coming from Venezuela, which is something that's routinely done. I don't know to what extent it happens off of the southeast coast. It'll take a long time for someone to die from exposure and starvation and dehydration between Venezuela and Trinidad. Is relatively unlikely. Not impossible, but relatively unlikely. And I do wonder if, to some extent, if they were lost trying to traverse Latin America to us, I don't know if the boat would have been discovered with dead bodies off of our east coast, right? And then based on the photograph, I think the assumption is they're coming somewhere from Africa. And at that point, who's going to be smuggling drugs to Trinidad from Africa in a pirogue? This seems to be more of a case of some sort of illegal migration or human trafficking or smuggling. A journalist from the Associated Press believes that the situation there, let me just get this. The boat could have been a Mauritian fishing vessel used to transport West African migrants to the Spanish Canary Islands in the Atlantic Ocean. I do believe that's kind of towards the southwest of Africa, and then depending on the currents, if they went off course, if anything went wrong with the engine, that's the end of that. Let me just double check that, but it's either the southwest or the west of the continent, and compared to us, it would be relatively, oh no, I stand corrected, it's to the somewhat northwest. Compared to Trinidad's position of Venezuela, it's a bit further out. And it's one of those things where this could have been, and we've seen it with regards to the Mediterranean. People using boats to try to make it to Europe, and just from North Africa to the Mediterranean or the Middle East up to Southern Europe is not necessarily deemed safe. So risking the Atlantic Ocean. So that's what our reporter from the Associated Press thinks. And if that's the case, I don't really think it's a concern to the American authorities, particularly those who have issues with regards to gun and drug smuggling. Now, we don't know for sure, right? But again, it seems highly unlikely we'll have drug smugglers in pirogues from West Africa. It's just not efficient for the criminals to take such a risk. These 5 unfortunate souls are probably for some other reason, and again, it'll be lost to us potentially. The reporter was saying that it was unfortunate if items off of the boat were secured, they might have been able to identify the individuals, but then you run the risk of contaminating the scene, their dead bodies there. It's not like you could just go through their pockets to try and forgive the expression, fish for information. So I do wonder to what extent this is slightly exposing not just the MPs, but I think in general, this is an issue. It looked like low-hanging fruit. It's something we could lambast the government for, but maybe he should have been a bit more careful, MP Munilal, with regards to how we criticize the government. Because to say that the Coast Guard didn't do a good job, I mean, as much as I wouldn't necessarily jump to that conclusion, I can't argue against it. I can't, give a definitive explanation as to why that's not the case. But then to try to imply that this is a issue with regards to international partners and drug smuggling, I don't think that source is, or that theory would hold water, and then it runs the risk of undermining your whole argument, because any government can come and say, you see, they will latch on to where you're wrong and try to downplay where you may not be wrong. That's generally what happens with politicians in general. Now, while I am not looking to throw the Coast Guard on the bus for this one, despite the fact that I don't necessarily think it's a well-run organization, well-equipped organization, or capable organization, I will say this. The National Security Minister's defense with regards to saying that adequate patrol vessels have been provided, I don't know if that's where I would go. Right now, I think we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, this situation I don't think allows us to judge whether or not the Coast Guard has adequate patrol vessels. But what is relevant with regards to that issue is the lack of results with regards to the interdiction of human trafficking, gun and drug smuggling into the country. So we're not really seeing, and on the contrary, people who have experience with the water and who understand what goes on at our ports of entries, and well, to them, certain activity is all but very obvious. Illegals come and go as though, they just hopped on a water taxi and came across, no muss, no fuss. But they're assumed to be illegal given the nature of the one-way trip, so to speak. We're not seeing anything wrong with that. We've already had a situation where we locked down the borders, and technically our maritime borders were wide open while there was a global pandemic. We know this because odds are that it is likely just about every COVID flare-up happened because it was introduced from our illegal maritime ports of entry, not because of people flying in. I could be wrong about that with regards to all, but at the very least, that's how the Latin American variant, South American variant, it came into our borders, right? I mean, one would hope that the reverse is not true, that our maritime borders are open and COVID actually didn't come through there. But the area that we actually were on guard for, our aerial port of entry, COVID was coming through like a sieve. One would hope that that's not the case, because that in some ways would be even worse. So the minister trying to say that the Coast Guard is adequately equipped, we're not seeing the equivalent results for that statement to be true to then say, right, everything should be okay. So I'm not entirely sure exactly what the government's plan here with that defense is supposed to be, but I can't reasonably support it because I have no actual reason to believe such a statement myself. Now, I just want to switch gears now to an actual crime consideration in our country. Again, we don't know exactly what happened on the boat, if there was foul play there, etc., etc. Maybe there was foul play. Maybe they are from South Africa and it's foul play that got those men killed. Unfortunately, it's not likely that we'll ever know. But what we will know is, with regards to the victims of shootouts, whether killed by criminals or strays by law enforcement. One priest has pointed out something that we might not be willing to hear. We are a people who seem to be getting worse and worse. What are we going to be leaving to the little ones behind, to the young ones? We have to look at what is happening now. What are the seeds that are being planted? Whatever seeds that we plant, they will grow. And I think that's one of the things that perhaps we take for granted. We don't want to bear the responsibility that our mistakes are not just minor things that, will inconvenience us today, but they will grow into bigger problems that will potentially cause significant harm to the generation tomorrow. In fact, to some extent, one could argue that's what's happening right now, and yet we want to take some of us comfort about blaming the people from yesterday, while to some degree tolerating or not pushing back strong enough against similar mistakes happening today. One of the things that we lack is true leadership. And I hate to say this, but at some point, people in society may need to understand the people who are going to speak out first may run the risk of not enjoying the benefits because it might take that long, because it might be that unpopular, because it might be that much of an uphill battle. But a leader is not doing things because he thinks he will benefit from it at the end of the day. A good leader is not someone who leads a movement not to see the issue be championed and solved, whether quickly if possible, but slowly but surely when necessary, which could include that person, again, never seeing the change that they advocate for in their lifetime, but committing to the work to know that the change is hopefully coming down the pipe once other people like themselves sign up for the fight and move forward. But it seems that we need to look at our leaders and wonder, are they doing it for our benefit, or are they doing it to build up their portfolio so that then they become a different, well, let me not use that term, but they become a leader to benefit from their position, to reap the rewards of where they have arrived. Whether the issue has been solved or not does not matter, as long as their profile is raised and they are seen as a leader, and they are respected as a leader, and they are rewarded as a leader. Then one could argue, and Booker T. Washington in the 1920s, I believe, had this argument, where's the incentive at that point for them to actually finish the job? And if you have a cause that seems too big, depending, a lot of people don't want to necessarily be involved or start it. And it's not just politicians, it's across the board. There's a lack of leadership coming from communities, coming from religious bodies, as much as they say what they say. Coming from the education or academia, the education system, coming from the business community, as much as they say what they want to say, there's a limit. So at some point, you say something's bad, and then you sip your tea. Are you really invested in solving it? I would argue in the long run, no. And if you don't like what I have to say, please show me the results or the process that proves me wrong in a general sense. I'm not saying everybody's like that. Last thing I wanted to touch on, a senior police officer, DCP Benjamin again, he's talking about the fact that there are 3,000 more body cameras on the way, and now he insists officers are using the 940 body cameras available. But that is in stark contrast to the PCA director's claims that, well, he's never received body cam footage. So when DCP Benjamin, and I spoke about this yesterday, but I need to respond to this, when he says that we have officers wearing body cameras, so let's not act like they're not wearing body cameras, I would like to say that if the PCA director has received no footage, then you could say that they're wearing the body cameras till the cows come whole, until your face turns blue. But effectively speaking, the criticisms is essentially the same. It's not working. And it's not an issue of not enough cameras. Because if you don't have enough cameras, then the issue would be you might not get footage for everything, but there should still be footage for some things. People are smart when they want to game the system. Could it be that officers, when they don't have body cameras, the bad ones, they know, well, they only have 940. Yeah, you wear it. You wear it. Yeah, y'all wear it, man. Y'all be safe. Y'all wear the body cameras. I don't want to wear it. Or I'll only do my nonsense when I'm not wearing it, if we rotate it. It's not working. And this lower-level excuse, oh, well, don't say that they're not wearing it. They're wearing it. What are we? Are we in elementary school? This is the kind of excuse that a primary school student will try to give to a teacher, and the teacher will look at them saying, you can't be serious. Because the result of not having footage available means that regardless of if all of them are being worn, there's no footage at all? How could that be? Why is that happening? What are you doing about it? We're going to continue. Again, it's like our leaders in the police service don't understand leadership. I'm saying that we're going to continue to offer and encourage the officers to use them once we have. Why are you encouraging? What does encouragement have to do with it? They are your subordinates. This is a serious job. This is not volunteers at the church's bake sale. This is not volunteers at a community pool to teach people how to swim. They collect a check to do a job. Are you saying that they're not willing to? I can't, every time I hear this lame, pathetic language of we will encourage our rank and file to do things that they're supposed to do. I would just like to know, if you don't seemingly understand how leadership of a paramilitary organization works, are you qualified for the job? Is the rest of the executive speaking like this too? Is this, I mean, think about it. That's like, let's go back to the school analogy. Could you imagine if a principal told the student body of a school, we will encourage you to obey the rules? Because what's basically happening is real students are breaking real rules if the police service is a school and there's not a detention, not a suspension, there's nothing. Just to the public, to the parents, well, they're not supposed to break the rules and we will encourage them not to break the rules any further. Can't be serious. You can't run a police service like this. You can't run national security like this. What happened? Everybody in your rank and file is your friend? Is the friend of a friend? What happened? You're worried about your popularity about something? I don't understand. What is with this? We want the police to be tougher on the criminals, and yet the police executive can't even be tough on their own subordinates who are not following the rules and regulations and the policies and the procedures. How pathetic is that? Let's take a break. We'll start up with the Daily Review when we come back.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos,
vinyl and Sabian cymbals,
Remo and Evans drumheads, and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also, a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Between the Bank and the Gutter, a novel about street dwellers in Port of Spain. This is a book to make you both laugh and cry. Above all, it takes you to that special space that only street dwellers know. In this moving and riveting human interest story, Harry journeys from insanity to sanity while living on the streets of Port of Spain. Now available at Metropolitan Books, 12 Aripita Avenue, Woodbrook. Paper-based bookshop, 14 Alcazar Street, Woodbrook. WESN, 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. And the home store branches located at Barataria, Shogunas, and East Gates Mall. Autographed copies now available on request. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh. I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People, and Closer to the Church.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
I'm back on Document on WSND Content Capital Show. Michael Small here, welcoming you once again. Now we'll go straight into today's Daily Review. So, first thing I want to get to, sticking with the police, I don't know what a lot of you will make of it, but there are a couple of things with regards to this story that bother me. First of all, the head of the Police Service Social and Welfare Association, ASP, Gideon Dixon, he is being permitted to challenge the Police Service Commission with regards to the selection process of the Commissioner of Police. From what I understand, he also has a similar challenge with regards to the process for Deputy Commissioner of Police. Essentially, one of the main points of his argument is that his credentials, his master's and his thesis comes from a tertiary institution, a foreign tertiary institution, I believe, that one DCP Junior Benjamin also used as part of his credentials to apply for the promotion. And DCP Benjamin got promoted Deputy Commissioner, and ASP Gideon Dixon did not. Now, one of the things that this brings up, because he's saying this is not fair, right? I mean, apparently their thesis, because it's a management master's, and their thesis apparently was similar, and it spoke to issues with regards to policing and management, I believe. And one got the nod and one did not. Although I do wonder if that argument will hold as much water with regards to his lawsuit over the selection process for commissioner, but potentially it might. More on the timing of that in a second. The thing is, one must wonder if seniority was what was given consideration unofficially, because I don't believe that's what Mr. Dixon was told. Because he is an assistant superintendent, and Junior Benjamin was at the very least a senior superintendent, I believe, before promoted to deputy commissioner. Yes, he was a senior superintendent. And we have heard the outgoing Police Service Commission, stick a pin on that fact, the outgoing Police Service Commission lamenting the fact that at least for the Commissioner of Police, they would like to also be in charge of the selection process for the assistant commissioners, because that's the pool, apparently, that they have to then pick the commissioner candidates from. From the assistant commissioners of police. So this challenge now with regards to the selection process of commissioner, I do wonder if at the end of the day it's a question of seniority. And I do wonder if, ironically, they know they are not supposed to use seniority per se. From what I understand, they may be looking at someone under the rank of Deputy Commissioner of Police to be commissioner, and that already is getting pushed back. But that's rumor and hearsay. I don't know how true that is. So an assistant superintendent to be commissioner. Now, I don't know also if this is partially blowback from selecting a civilian politician, former Army captain, to be commissioner of police. that has no actual police rank or police record, right? But to some extent, the layman, and I think the general public, might actually think maybe an assistant superintendent might be too low to be the commissioner of police. That might be a bit too much of a jump. That potentially is not an unreasonable statement, but I am not entirely sure what the law says the criteria has to be. Because again, a civilian was offered the role as commissioner. And to some degree, while I would say, obviously, you don't want to see the police take some random constable and promote him to commissioner, right? That's the most extreme example, after a civilian. So we know that at some point, it's not appropriate. Where is the limit? I'm not going to pretend to say I know what that is. Is it superintendent, senior superintendent, assistant superintendent, assistant commissioner of police? I don't think it should be limited to the DCPs. And the thing is, the flip side of that is, because that leads me to an argument of merit-based promotion. Well, one could argue that someone who is deserving of merit will just be promoted up the ranks, from ASP to superintendent, senior superintendent, ACP, DCP, commissioner. That would be more stable. Prove that you could do the next level and the next level, have the next level of responsibility before you move up, and don't try to jump the ladder. But regardless, it does make me think that this whole promotion process is based around seniority. And if that's not a credible reason to give ASP Gideon Dixon, well then we have to ask ourselves, why is it potentially being used? Because right now what we're seeing is seniority over meritocracy, and the results are not necessarily that great, right? And make no mistake, you could be a good senior superintendent, you could be a good head of the division. That doesn't mean you're going to be good at the role of DCP or commissioner of police. There's a lot to be considered here. Even if you prove yourself at the role right underneath, you might be bad at the next level. That's possible too. So we need to not just assume that, the police executive were bad cops throughout their whole career. They might just not be appropriate for their current rank and station. But there's another issue with regards to this lawsuit that I'm wondering, I don't know how relevant this is. I just know that Gideon Dixon is suing the Police Service Commission, but they just not too long ago changed out the Police Service Commission. So exactly who is he suing? The current people who weren't in charge when he essentially was blanked? Are they supposed to be responsible for the actions of the previous Service Commission? Now, maybe if they can't provide a relevant explanation, to some degree they would have to be responsible, to some degree. But I would argue that their culpability could only be displayed in the potential upcoming process, because they actually haven't done a process yet. That was the actions of the outgoing Police Service Commission. Is that who he's suing? Why didn't he sue them why didn't he sue them before? The timing of it, I don't know if it's practical anymore, unfortunately. Now, to some extent, if he's just suing the Police Service Commission as a body, and the lawsuit could be done to kind of compel them to rectify behavior that may or may not have been wrong in the previous instances moving forward, then fine. If that's the goal, okay. If he's looking for anything more than that, I don't know. The individuals there now, how culpable could they be? So that's the two things. That was the second one, the meritocracy over seniority, or seniority over meritocracy was the first one that I wanted to get to. Want to go to the next story there. This is the election cycle is gearing up, the machinery is gearing up, and candidates for different seats are being selected. Some incumbent candidates are being rejected, such as the current Minister of Labour, Stephen McClatchy. the Minister of Tourism, Randall Mitchell, has been given a nod. He has the nomination to go up for that seat on behalf of the PNM. One of the things with the article coming out of analyzing the situation in one of the daily papers is the fact that some of the people in Labre are saying, well, we never saw the MP. This is Stephen McClatchy, current Minister of Labour. We never saw the MP. And I've heard similar things with regards to my own MP, the current Minister of Everything, Minister of Energy, Stuart Young. I've heard similar things from people living in the constituency. Now, granted, it's not like I've heard it from everybody that lives in St. Anne's, but I've heard it. So there are anecdotes, there's some truth in it, I don't know how far the truth goes. But we've even seen reports when the Prime Minister was looking to step down that some people in his own constituency kind of question his presence. Again, granted, they're anecdotal, we don't know to what degree how true it is. One of the things is the party groups might say, no, we believe in our guy. The public, the general public of a constituency and the party group is two different things. Two very different things. An MP might be present for his party group. Is he present for all of the residents of a constituency? And this leads me back to something. I'm not going to just assume, oh, well, these people are lazy and they're not doing the job. I will always remember a TED Talk that happened, I believe, in the Central Bank Auditorium right here in TNT, where a former MP and minister basically said, look, it's two jobs, and there's not enough time to do both. And again, I will put it out. This is why something like constitutional reform matters. Because when you have an MP who is also a minister and you want to complain, I don't see my MP, well, to some extent, they have three jobs, right? You want to see them to be a representative in Parliament, but then they actually have to be in Parliament to debate bills. But how many of them are actually representing your constituency over whatever bill is being debated, as opposed to whatever the party position is? And I know, yes, you have to be one with the party has to be unified. Technically, you also have to represent the views and opinions and desires and needs and wants of your constituency in Parliament. You are a member of Parliament for constituency X, Y, and Z, not member of Parliament for political party A or political party B. And this is why I said ministers should not be MPs. Ministers should not be MPs. Senators, at the very least, they don't have a specific responsibility for a group of people. MPs do. Now, some of the things that people want to blame MPs for not being around for, that's more of a local government function. But one could argue having a good relationship between MPs and local government for the benefit of the people, whether the responsibilities are formal or informal, would be a good thing. More importantly, if you are never around your people, how do you know what your people want or need? Because when the legislation impacts how local government acts, when the legislation impacts how a constituency is going to be, the economy of a constituency, how it's going to be run, what benefits might be there, how laws might affect businesses there, when the MPs are no-shows. But here's the thing, if they're ministers, if they have to do work in cabinet, I mean, to what degree could a government minister, who also has to be in Parliament, by the way, as an MP, how often they're going to go back and forth between Trinidad and Tobago if they're MPs of Tobago West or Tobago East? Now, just having to go back and forth between Parliament and the constituency is work enough to be a minister on top of that? These things need to be separated. Senators, maybe that could stay, but even then, I would prefer senators to just, focus on being senators, to being the check on the House with regards to our legislative body. And let the cabinet be a separate entity who could then focus on having an agenda and not be part of the debate for said agenda, because there's no check and balance there. But more importantly, there's not enough hours in the day to do more than one job of that level. That's like trying to be the CEO of Boeing and Microsoft at the same time. It's not done. Because there are too many competing interests and responsibilities for your time as well as for your favor. Because there will be things that cabinet wants to do that will not necessarily favor all constituencies. It just is what it is. Particularly when budget comes up, the local government minister has the capacity to treat with all constituency equally and favor his own at the same time? No. So, if we don't want to make these changes, again, in the United Kingdom, there are something like 14 ministers and 600 and something MPs. It's not, and even then, I would argue, them MPs still should be ministers, but that's a them problem. We have our own problems. But, you know, if we just want to ignore it and keep on keeping on, fine. Because it's not as though, and on this issue, do not expect the opposition to be any better. Because with the PNM, the issue is, if you're not a minister, you're a junior minister. And almost everybody is either a minister or a junior minister. But with the People's Partnership, everybody had a ministry of their own. Different sides of the same coin. Let's take a break and when we come back, hopefully our guest will be here. Stay tuned. This is Talking About on WSN. We'll be right back after this.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today. SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands, and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, Vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads, and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also, a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
And we're back here talking about WSN, the Content Capital Show. Michael Small, joined by our media ambassador who was busy yesterday, could not encourage him to break beach, you know, because that'll be irresponsible of us. So thank you for joining us, ASP Arun.
Morning, good day to the citizens and trying to big and your viewers. Of course, in the TTPS, the court takes precedence. So I had court yesterday.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I unfortunately couldn't leave to
and that's a good sign, because we have an ASP who is not some Ray area headquarters weenie that doesn't actually do anything.
Oh, no.
You've done some things.
I arrest people.
You've arrested, you've done your job, right? I'm just saying, they have some people that have ambitions, and they may not have any sort of practical experience and might be headquarters people. So
listen, everybody has their place in the TTPS. Some of it might not be terrorist persons.
No. Listen, there will be good people who are in administration and planning, and they do the work in the offices that ensure that the logistics and the planning and the bureaucracy, they have good people that are necessary for any paramilitary or military organization. But then you have the ones that kind of use that as a cheap way to advance, because you in the halls of power and you not taking any risk. When you're in headquarters, you don't run the risk of having to, one, risk your life, and two, you're in a shootout. And of course, there's always the risk of things going wrong if you have to. I remember there was a case where there was a gunfight right next to traffic on Ryson Road. And I commended the police for that, because that was a dangerous situation. So many civilians right next to you. Things could have gone wrong, but luckily the situation did not extend out of control.
Correct. Well, with the right training and experience, you know, the police can will have the situation under control as usual, and normally would with the training and experience that they would have gathered during their service. So
now, some cynics might listen to you saying that and might be like, yeah, right. But I will remind people, yesterday I pointed out, there were several articles where police intervened in crime. Nobody got shot, and suspects were arrested minutes after the crime was done. Now, in one case, the criminal jumped into a bush. I don't know what he was thinking. But in other cases, like with regards to the priest that was shot and robbed, you all capture those subjects. You all then just shoot first and ask questions later.
No, it's not the normal practice of the TTPS to shoot first and ask questions after. They go into a situation, they have to assess it immediately, within seconds, and they have the use of force policy that they have to abide by. So it's not every case would be the same. And as we always say on the program, every case is a case-by-case basis. Every situation is a case-by-case basis, and not all would be necessary to use deadly force to neutralize any suspect.
Now, we didn't speak about this before, but dare I ask, with regards to body cameras?
Yeah, we have a number of body cameras that officers use on a daily basis.
Could you give us, from your point of view, from someone closer to the troops on the ground, like what are some, because listen, while I'm not going to sit up here and say they're all saints and it's just coincidence that there's no body camera footage for the PCA. It's not like every police officer is going out of their way to undermine the process.
No.
So there are probably, I do believe, some legitimate issues. All the body cameras do have battery issues, right? Because I did some research before, depending on the age of it, which I don't think our cameras, the ones that we have, are that new. We could be suffering from, I understand that, but what are some of the practical issues with regards to the body cameras? Or maybe it's not, that's not an issue.
It's not, to me, from on the ground, it's not a major issue. We have a number of officers using body cameras on a daily basis. It's rotated. It's especially the troops on the ground, the GB and the ITF and the task forces, and the patrol officers and the traffic officers. I know that, for instance, in traffic branch, I think they have, in Port of Spain, they have like 50 body cameras that they use on a daily basis. So it's operational.
It is
you
operational.
may have one or two issues at times,
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, this is just one of those things that hopefully could be resolved, because when I mean, I guess you could appreciate when you hear the PC say, well, we've never gotten footage for any of our complaints.
Maybe in that particular instance. But
the public will have concerns.
Yeah, I mean, there are normal traffic stops, so you're on a roadblock, you would see the body cameras on officers. Maybe in certain situations, not all, well, not all, in some situations, the ones that PCA want may not have body cameras, but they are usually used. And I don't think it will be every case that the PCA requests body camera footage that they would not have. Maybe in the ones that are highlighted on the media.
Yeah.
And it gets, but is that the, you have to make sure that this is not the official stance of the TTPS, because the PCA may say something, and we are not sure that they have gotten it as yet, maybe.
Right.
Because what takes precedence in a police shooting is the investigation. And an investigation in a police shooting is done by a first division officer, and he or she may not necessarily hand over the footage to PCA to conduct their investigation simultaneously. He or she may want to view that footage and assess the footage and download the footage and critique the footage before it's handed over to PCA. So PCA may not be the first port of call to hand over your footage.
It gets kind of complicated when you have a criminal investigation.
Yeah, and then you have the civil
PCA,
body, yeah.
Right, the PCA, this is one of those things, it's not really a criminal investigative body.
No.
If there's any suspicion of a police officer breaking the law, they technically don't have the authority or the jurisdiction to conduct an investigation like that over the matter. They could still...
Their investigation does amount to the same, almost the same as a criminal investigation.
Almost the same?
Almost the same, yeah.
But
they look at everything. So they take they scrutinize the criminal investigation in the sense that they look at all the forensics, they look at all the statements, they look at all the reports, they look at the diary entries and whatnot. The vehicle, they are given full autonomy to look at these things.
And they're supposed to have access.
And they're supposed to have access.
But
they have lawful access.
It might just be an issue of timing with regards to...
Yeah, it's not all the time, because as I said, an investigator must scrutinize the evidence he has. And it may not be handed over immediately to the PCA. So the PCA, when they come out and say, listen, I can't speak for them, but that may be the reason.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know with regards to current events with the police service.
Yeah,
any updates for us?
Yeah, well, there is the updates on the SOE, there are carnival safety tips, there are other issues like permits, persons seeking to obtain permits who may reside... No.
Oh, sorry.
So for the carnival period, you may reside in Port of Spain and...
wanting to get alcohol.
The pass.
Yes.
Yeah, so you want to move about. It's been available since yesterday that you could go online at ttps.gov.tt and you can apply for the permit. So when you go onto the website, there's a section for permits.
This is the drive into Port of Spain?
This is yes. So if you reside, work in Port of Spain and maybe the Western Division, because of the traffic and because of the restrictions, you would want to get a permit to be able to operate within up and down in the...
No, because we have actually, as a media house, applied for permits before. But I mean, not that I've driven around a lot during Carnival, but I have driven rarely, but some, right, when necessity demands. What are the restrictions of driving that would then require this permit? Could you just explain it to me?
They would.
I don't know if other people are aware, and I'm just the one ignorant one. But
right, so the restrictions in and around Port of Spain, around the Savannah, you may not be able to drive where pedestrians have the right-of-way. There would be roads blocked off.
Right.
And they would be manned by TTPS officers.
Okay.
And the permit allows you to pass through when the pedestrians have cleared, and the officers will allow you to get to your place of work, and they will ensure that you're mandated to get through barriers.
It's not like it's impossible to drive through Port of Spain,
no.
But there'll be certain areas that, if you don't have a permit, your car's not going to be allowed to go through.
You're not going to be allowed to pass,
Okay. And with regards to the SOE going on and is there any hope that the situation with the gang violence has been potentially stemmed? Because one of the things that, ironically, that's come up, we've had recently another murder-suicide happen. And I don't know if some people do feel safe with regards to the SOE, but we're still seeing criminal activity. I said yesterday, it's almost like if people really are disregarding that we're under an SOE, as much as some civilians think that they're safer. When you look at some of the crimes that are happening, especially the one where, the cashier knew identified who the person was, could recognize the person wearing the wig. Like, And it seemed like even this amateur criminal who doesn't know what he's doing is willing to attempt to rob somebody during an SOE. I don't know if you've seen anything that could kind of make heads or tails of this.
Well, I have the update in terms of the stats of the results of the SOE. So I could give it that to you. Like the number of, so there are 10 policing divisions throughout Trinidad.
Right, yeah.
Right? There has been 1,560 operations. We have targeted 1,372 priority offenders. These are gang members, persons who have been engaged throughout their lifetime or most of their lifetime in criminal activity and are bent on continuing their path. We have conducted 9,368 searches. This is during the SOE period. We have conducted 1,369 traffic operations. We have arrested 1,252 persons. We have detected...
Arrested and charged or arrested and released?
I don't have the charge.
Okay.
Right? Traffic offenses detected 4,367. We have seized 53 firearms. And...
Went up from yesterday, I think.
We have seized 1,275 various types of ammunition. This is 9mm, 5.56. Right? Those are the 5.56 are the ones used in
automatic rifles.
Yeah, like the AK and the MR and the 7.62 ammunition. Also, we have confiscated and seized. I have it in grams. 156,992 grams of marijuana and 761 grams of cocaine, which seems to be, when you look at the arrests, when you look at the quantities seized, it's a lot.
Also, I think some marijuana fields were burnt. I think I saw 1 or 2 reports of that happening recently.
Yeah.
But with regards to traffic offenses, and this is one of the things, I think a lot of people are like, well, why are y'all worried about minor traffic offenses when y'all should be worried about major crime?
Right.
The traffic operations, so the roadblocks and those things, would you say that, well, to some extent, they're really meant to try to catch criminals trying to move weapons and drugs?
Yes, of
and
course.
if you happen to come across somebody doing something stupid on the road, you can't ignore it.
No, I remember, from my experience, I remember in Central Division, task force officers were on patrol in the London Vale area, and they detected a traffic offense. The occupants of the vehicle did not have on their seatbelts. And when it aroused their suspicion also that the vehicle had things sped off. But when they were able to capture the vehicle and the occupants, they found multiple firearms in the vehicle. And they only monitored the vehicle, they only detected the offense of the seatbelt.
Right.
And that's when they engaged the persons. And traffic offense, and when you're fighting crime, when you're dealing with crime, it's important not to just deal with the criminal aspect of crime, because it's a holistic venture you're undertaking. So you want to deal with the traffic offenses and you want to deal with the criminal offenses, both. You want to incorporate both, especially into SOE. So you see the presence and the effectiveness of the police officers on the streets.
Yeah, is there one of those things when people kind of see police ignore crime?
Yeah. You don't want
you get a reverse, you get a negative outcome in reverse.
Of course, yeah. So you want to police everything, even though it's small, even if it's a traffic offense, it's small. It does contribute to crime and criminality. I remember last week, Tuesday, either Tuesday or Wednesday, these two gentlemen were proceeding out of the Arangwes area onto the highway and decided to turn around from the highway back into Arangwes because they made so I had to pull them over. And check their documents. And for an instant, he couldn't find his insurance. And he had to call his daughter, and eventually he found it in the vehicle. And, I gave him a warning because I didn't have a traffic book with me. I didn't have a device to issue the traffic. And I was in uniform. I was in plain clothes and whatnot. But we had cause to stop him and talk to him and warn him strictly about that behavior. And
just for people to be clear, the road that he got on the highway on is not a two-way road because it's a highway, right? You're going onto a one-direction lane.
Yeah, it's meant to merge onto the highway.
Right. Traffic only flows to merge. Traffic doesn't. So he tried to...
He turned around.
He did a U-turn and tried to go back the wrong way.
Yeah. So
Wait. Did he do the U-turn on the highway?
no, on the, on the minor road.
Because, all right,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah.
Because that's just one of those things that I will never, it don't matter whether the police are there or not, like just the other drivers on the road will,
Yeah.
I would not want to do something like that, one, because something could go wrong.
And this is an elderly gentleman with experience. I
Oh,
checked his driver's
Lord.
permit. He had a number of years experience.
Well, maybe part of it is, to some extent, more roads back then were not one way. I guess you could say traffic didn't flow quite like that. I'm grasping at straws here, I guess.
Yeah, you are. But it's not the correct thing. And he was taking instructions from the passenger.
Ah.
Yeah. The passenger was advising him where to pass. Apparently, he's from the St. James area. And Arangwes was out of his...
No, to be fair, because I've seen the roundabout by the Savannah in Queen's Hall, very rarely, but I've seen people essentially, everybody that drives around the Savannah, that goes from the Savannah to the Lady Young or to Belmont or from Cascade St. Anne to the Savannah, they know how that roundabout works. It's not that complicated.
Yeah.
But I've seen a driver really kind of come out of left field and do the wrong thing, and I'm just like, that person obviously does not drive here every day.
Yeah. So you see it a lot. We see it a lot on the roads. So we've been pulling over vehicles. We even pull over vehicles that we suspect. We make sure our police vehicles, if we see a blue light on a vehicle, it's an unmarked vehicle, we pull it over as well.
Just about. Yes, I think you were telling us before.
Yeah, I got pulled over.
You got...
Yeah, I got pulled over. I was driving an unmarked police vehicle with blue lights, and the traffic police pulled me over.
And I guess this is one of the things that we don't necessarily hear and see when police actually correctly hold each other to account.
Of course.
I was speaking about it yesterday, the incident on the highway with the prison officer that apparently was intoxicated at 10:30 a.m.
Right.
And like I was saying, it's not, look, there are some police officers who would do this, or in this case, as a prison officer trying to say, well, get somebody in my rank to do, and trying to pull weight.
No, you can't do that.
You can't do that, right?
A traffic officer, traffic warden, licensing officer, a police officer, the transit police officers, whatever rank they are entitled to pull over any officer of any rank and
this
check
is generally the case. It doesn't matter what rank you are, you can't break the rules.
Of
and
course.
The police will do things to hold each other to account when it comes to the law.
Yeah. And you see that in the TTPS. When you look at the average arrest of any institution in Trinidad and Tobago, when you look at across the careers and and you look at institutions like or agencies, prisons, police, army, attorneys, doctors, lawyers, whatever institution or career path, you see when you look at the stats, police officers are arrested more often than other agencies and other media careers.
Right.
Yeah, because police officers want to ensure that other police officers are doing the correct thing.
There you go. But I mean, it's interesting that you said it, because I don't think anybody would assume that to be the case, or would have suspected that to be the case.
No, police officers investigate their own colleagues, arrest their own colleagues, charge their own colleagues for crimes that they are suspected of committing. I mean, they are innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
But when you look at different agencies, you don't see anybody else reporting other colleagues. Even in the media, I don't think you see that happening. And I'm sure that it does happen.
Well, usually in the media, more often than not, we kind of get a get out of jail free pass, because if anybody does anything wrong, it'll probably be public.
Yeah.
And if it's not public, then it's not that simple for each other to know about it.
Right. But how many other jobs and people in those jobs and agencies and institutions commit offenses?
Generally speaking, you don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah, I have an uncle. He went to an institution, and he tried to conduct some business there. And when he went to the counter, the person at the counter said, well, uncle, you could have paid that $1,500 and we would have sorted this out for you. And he doesn't want to pay a bribe. I begged him to give me the information so we could treat with it, and he didn't want to. He didn't want to. Because he knows I will deal with it.
Right.
He knows I will engage the fraud squad or the anti-corruption or whoever I have to engage to ensure that something is done about it. And he didn't want to pursue it.
Folks, this is more or less, I think, I could believe it to be true because, as I always say, and I believe this is supporting evidence of that fact, although again, it's not, I mean, you're not giving us the physical document of the reports, but we'll go with it, right? Because we know that it can't be that the entire service is bad because the whole system would have collapsed. And like we will say, in the public sector, in the various institutions of national security, there are going to be people who are trying to hold the ship together. And I do believe this to be true because I actually think it would be very, very unreasonable if it was not true that there will be officers who understand, listen, my name is being tossed in the mud. Even if I keep my nose clean publicly, what the bad officers are doing are going to affect me, right? It's going to affect how people look at me. People are going to judge me. So I need to be willing to do something about it.
Yeah, and I think the TTPS should be credited for the way that they deal with their own colleagues and bring them before the courts when they have done something wrong. As I said, you're not seeing that as often in other agencies. And we know of reports from other agencies that come out and nothing is done. Nothing is done. And the TTPS seems to have a prevalence of dealing with their own.
So I'll just close with this. We'll take a break and we'll open phone lines. If you want to say, hey, spare room, what are you talking about? I will just argue this. Because I also look at the media ambassador program and think, hey, this is something that not a lot of institutions around the country are doing, right? That is beneficial to try to, not even political parties, as much as they have public relations sides of their organization or private entities. Think about it this way. I actually think if you have an issue with how the police is being managed and you are not, you want to say, well, SPRO, and it's not all as rosy as you make it out to be. I actually think both things could be true at the same time. That SPRO is right, and they still have problems, and then there are wider implications of, well, if your negative opinion of police exists despite of all the work being done to try to combat it, what about the other institutions where we don't see any work being done or hear about any work being done to combat their negative aspects? How bad could those institutions be? This is my opinion. This is not the ASP's opinion. I don't want to start any interagency rivalry. I just want to throw that out there, right?
I didn't call any name.
I just want to throw that out there, right? If we're seeing some effort and we're hearing testimony of some members of the organization saying, well, we are trying to do things, but we have examples of some lack of effort in other corners of our society, I'll leave that there. Something to think about, right? Sometimes, you know, you have to consider things on a curve, right? To put things in perspective, maybe. Not always, not absolutely, but it's an interesting exercise. We'll take a break. We'll open the phone lines. When we come back, we'll want to hear from you, the viewer. You could call in and have your say. Stay tuned.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond
want
to me. Respond to me. How you would respond to me?
The first question I'll ask is why.
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
And I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
let's go to the last part.
And we're back here and talking about the WSND Content Capital.
WESN.
Sean Michael joined by ASP Arun. Talked about a few things. People need to understand that yes, it's a state of emergency. And look, the police are not going to just disregard some minor traffic offense because two things. One, they shouldn't. And two, sometimes a minor offense could lead them to somebody doing a great offense. I guess there's this interesting thing with some criminals where you say they know don't do anything stupid and get pulled over because of some minor traffic thing when you have, I don't know how much drugs in the trunk. But then they have other criminals who feel bad man no cater and they will do whatever they want and then give themselves away.
No, and that's the thing. Even under normal circumstances outside the SOE, we would see, our experience has taught us that people will rent Benz and BMWs to transport drugs. So far as for now in an SOE, when you want to stay undetected, you would put on your seatbelt. You would have all the lights in your vehicle working.
Right, because
and
if they rent a Benz, you're not going to think the gang boys are driving a Benz.
We have seen and we have the experience where persons
this is to hide the drugs. This is to try to
traffic the drugs. And they believe because they do not look like a typical gang member that they would bypass police officers on a roadblock.
I mean, how old are these drivers usually?
Well, from my experience, they are young, 20s, 30s.
Because, listen, I don't care what race or economic bracket you come from. There are very few people under the age of 25 who are driving Mercedes-Benz. That's a red flag. If I was driving a Mercedes-Benz, I would red flag myself.
It has also been my experience that before they decriminalize the quantity of marijuana you could hold, I have been on undercover operations where we were monitoring drug blocks, and I would have seen Benz and BMWs with elderly persons pulling up to purchase marijuana.
Oh, well, yeah, but they're not the smugglers. They're just the
purchasers.
The 1%ers that want to do recreational stuff and they know it's wrong and they're going to seek it out. Anyway, that's a whole other kettle of fish. We have Digger Martin first on the line. Good morning, caller, on here.
Good morning, Mr. Sean, and a very, very good morning to the superintendent here. And I'm going directly to him. So I want to thank you for telling us that you have charged people and you have been in court. So, to me, it is a clapback from the Prime Minister who said, police, not policing. You give me an idea that you basically understand what is the policing function. And I'm going to ask you another thing, and you don't have to answer it. Is the executive, inclusive of the Commissioner of Police, know how to police and know what is policing? Because I'm hearing that she does not have an operational skill. She might be good at administration, and she came through the rank. That is what I'm hearing. You don't have to answer. The other issue, I want to... I'm knocking the police on it, and I believe you all are not truthful with your statistics. I think you want to hoodwink the population with your metrics. Cocaine. This came out of the press conference 2 days ago. 864 grams. 80% of the people in Trinidad don't know what that equates to. That is less than 2 pounds. put it in simple terms so we will understand. 167 kilos of marijuana. That is equivalent to 6 crocus bag. You get one raid and that is 6 crocus bag. But we pass legislation where we allow people to plant 4 marijuana tree in their backyard. A harvester could probably pick some of that and put into a bag. So that to me is not a telling metrics that say you are successful. You have 1,617 operations. That's very good. You block a car here, you block a road, you drive up the road, you go in front of a thing. Is operation. What are the deliverables from them operation? You have 1,278 arrests, but the arrests lead to only about 30% in charges. Is those charges going to be stick? And coming back to one of the things you exhausted, your organization seems to be doing the corrective action within your police service. That might be so, but you have not given me confidence. For example, 2 of your very, very senior officers, a ACP and a DCP, is before the courts for a number of different reasons. One, and I'm going to put to Barbados, we're spending a lot of taxpayers' money trying to find out who gave the instruction to that. Right? We have to be honest to the people. And the other one is a khaki pants man who charged activists somewhere in Shogunas. And the judge said to everybody that something was wrong with his affidavits, and he had policemen around him and he didn't call them to visit. So they just questioned his honesty. Now, that's supposed to go back into the police service to investigate and come to and you all have to tell us what was the outcome of that investigated, that a judge castigated a senior police officer, and right after that he was promoted. I'll go and have a nice morning.
Thank you, caller. Do we have another caller waiting? We have, is it San Fernando on the line? Good morning, caller.
Morning, Sean.
Morning.
Morning, SB. Let me hear me, SB.
You hearing? We having some other issues on his end, but you can continue, and if it's anything, I'll let him know.
Okay, well, good. I wanted to first say that when people have a problem with the measurements that they give in terms of the volume of drugs, in terms of the metric system, and Trinidad and Tobago went metric in 1976. That's a real indictment on the education system in the country. People can't understand that weight, and we went there since 76. I want to say this, Sean. I got stopped in a roadblock. There was a roadblock on Coastal Bridge on Friday night. I had gone out the road to get something, a couple of things done, a little late. When I was coming back in, there was a car coming in the opposite direction, and the car slowed down. I couldn't see the roadblockers yet, and I slowed down because of the type of car that gave me lights. I said, okay, I don't know what he wants. And he said to me, boy, there's a roadblock up on the junction there. And I said, okay. And I started to pull off, and he said, but you're going up there? I said, yeah. I just drove on. And it said to me, that people in this country are so stupid. You don't know me. You don't know what I have in my vehicle. You should just let me go into the roadblock. People have this innate rule-breaking attitude in this country. People are so anti doing the right thing. Because he would have come through the roadblock, and he's telling me don't go through the roadblock, or giving me advice.
Yeah.
You don't know what I have. It is night. You don't know what I have in my vehicle.
Yeah.
So I went up to the roadblock, and the officer came up to me, and he scrutinized. First thing he scrutinized was my sticker, inspection sticker, And I had been, I pulled up, there were a couple of vehicles, so I took up my license and insurance. And he started to question me. He asked me, so, well, good night, sir. And I said, good night. He said, where you going to? I said, well, home. He said, where home is? And I told him where. And he seemed a little familiar, so he asked me another question about, I said, okay, when you go up there, I told him where. Then he said, where you coming from at this hour? And I said to him, because I had a ladder in the back, I actually left home to go and do that. I said, I went to our work site, I have there to pick up this ladder to lend my neighborhood down to do something tomorrow. And, you know, we had a conversation, and then he said, go ahead. He didn't even look at my license and insurance. I was given this interaction to a friend of mine the next day. And you know, the first thing he told me, so we didn't have to answer all those questions? And I am saying, I said, this is the problem in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I get stopped by law enforcement. He is doing a job, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He is asking me questions to get a feel of what, because he doesn't know me.
Engaging him.
And he's engaging me. So he's having an engagement with me. And then after that engagement, he made a decision. Oh, he said to me, could you put on your house lights as well? And he looked in the vehicle, you know, and he said, go ahead. Mm-hmm. And it is this innate anti-police situation that we have in the country where people, you have a roadblock, they want law enforcement, and they want law and order, you know, yep. But they don't want the law and order to affect them.
Yep.
They don't want the enforcement of the law and order to affect them. So don't go into the roadblock. Or they're asking you, don't answer the questions that they're asking you. I really don't know what's wrong with Trinidad and Tobago, you know. Is that they want law and order, but they don't want the enforcement of law and order to affect them. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you, Cole. That's a very good point.
Yeah, that was a good point. Also, the officer might be engaging you to pick up on tips like, are you under the influence of alcohol?
Right.
Right. So you may have had alcohol. He may smell it on your breath and conversing with you.
But just to be sure, even if he doesn't smell it.
Yeah, it might just be that he was being polite and just having a conversation with a citizen. Nothing is wrong with that. He asked him to put on his house light. So he's looking for a reasonable cause to look to see if there's any reason I should continue to detain this driver.
Yeah, because the flip side is, let's just say this is the United States and they're looking for a serial killer and they don't engage the driver who might be the suspect, right?
Yeah, the driver could have had somebody in the trunk fall.
Who knows what you might miss if you kind of just, at some point, obviously, you cannot inspect every citizen's car with a fine-tooth comb, but you have to have a reasonable level of engagement.
I remember I had an occasion, I was on a roadblock, and we stopped the taxi, and this gentleman, he had a bag on him, and he was in the center back seat, and for nothing, he looked around. He kept looking straight ahead. Eventually, when we searched, well, that aroused our suspicion that he didn't engage the police, and he didn't, I mean, our suspicion mightn't be the logical person's suspicion, but then it turned out he had a bag of marijuana on him at that time. It was like a full bag of marijuana. And that was his reason for not looking at the police. He wasn't looking around. He was nervous, strictly looking forward, not engaging, nothing like that.
Yeah.
And he had a bag of marijuana.
He was stiff.
He was stiff.
There we go. We have Move on the line. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good day.
No, Sean, I listened to Mr. San Fernando there and had to smile because, as I've always told you, we speak about this inherent lawlessness or anti-law behavior of Canadians, and no one wants to go into detail to dissect, to look at the data and understand where this came from. I keep saying those first 25 to 30 years is the genesis of the problems that we are in. And you said to me that while the infant years of a country are important, all the other years are also important. But if all the other years are not delving and accepting first the truth of where this problem started, we will never get out of this rut we are in. Now, we're talking about laws again. And officer, every day, listen to me carefully, every day that the administrators of the police service fail to deal with noise pollution, they can make all the excuses, give all the reasons, all the explanations. I'm saying to you to go back and tell your seniors that noise pollution is an irritant, is a health hazard. Yeah. It is something that if it happens too often, someone could trip, giving you all extra work, because the first part of the problem isn't being addressed. I have been fighting this situation for 20-odd years. I know all the excuses, all the explanations. I have Googled the laws, and I understand that there are laws that could be used, and I am fed up hearing excuses, explanations. I belong to a group that is growing every day. We are 3,000 plus and growing. And you all are just angling every day, and I don't mean you, sir. Let me be clear. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about those over your head, and I'm talking about your Attorney General and people like such. This situation needs to be addressed, and we are only getting old talk. Yeah. It needs to be addressed.
Yeah,
Cars, I saw a car on the highway just Saturday night. The volume of the music was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, I think we need stricter laws when it comes to music, because you tend to have neighbors who really overdo it with the music, and then you have a baby, you have a child, a newborn.
A lot of it also is
next
bars.
Door. Yeah, and the bars are in communities where newborns are, elderly are, animals are, and that's the thing. We need to be careful when it comes to these type of persons in society, and we need to treat them a little better than how we are treating them now.
Is it reasonable to say, going back with what Mr. San Fernando said with regards to how we treat with roadblocks, and listen, from what I understand, there are WhatsApp groups and people who, and look, I understand that you have a group of friends and you have a reasonable degree of confidence that nobody are criminals. Yeah. But then what Mr. San Fernando said, now you're warning strangers. Yeah. And like he said, you don't know who's the criminal in this situation. You're waving off criminals from a roadblock, right? It goes from irresponsible to more irresponsible. Yeah. I don't want to say that the WhatsApp groups are fine.
It's not a WhatsApp group. We have applications that tell you when there's a roadblock ahead.
Right, Waze will actually just say there's a roadblock because of the traffic slowdown, right? But my point is, things like that, things like the noise pollution being normalized, right? And look, I would even argue the government does it to some extent, like with PH taxis, right? It's not, you're not supposed, there is no actual PH number plate for taxis. It's H or P, right? Yeah. Things like that. We've normalized certain rule breaking. The professor from Shogunas, he would bring up parking on the Eastern Main Road. Yeah. Not supposed to happen, right?
On all the main roads.
Right. Now then, it comes to the point where, do you think it's reasonable to say we culturally have accepted a certain amount of law breaking? Yeah. And at the very least, if we as a society want some of these things to be legal, we should change the law, not just turn a blind eye. And in some cases, like with noise pollution and with the roadblocks, you are actively, there's no way to legalize that really responsibly. Yeah. You know, that is cultural law breaking that could then lead to worse outcomes.
Yeah, I think so. I think we need to look at the laws to make it stricter in some cases. For instance, on one of the programs previously, we spoke about having an alcoholic beverage open in the cabin of a vehicle, and we recognize that it's not illegal. Yes. Right? We spoke to the legal officer, and he told us, no, it's not illegal.
Off air?
Yeah, off air. And we spoke to other persons, and they said, no, it's not illegal, because in Trinidad and Tobago, we have some freedoms and privileges that we don't have elsewhere in the world, in other jurisdictions. And it's become the cultural norm. So
the entitlement to these freedoms.
So then persons think, well, look, I'm entitled to not answer the police officers, and you may very well be, but cultural and might be a cultural issue, but it's about getting the job done. It's about cooperating. It's about changing the behavior and the characteristics of how we operate in society.
Because what you just said there are some people that don't want to answer police, right? No, what they will say, I do nothing wrong, why are you questioning me? Right. But the point is, from the perspective of an officer, aren't those some of the things that criminals would say?
Yeah, exactly.
To try to not answer questions?
So as a police officer, you would have to try your best to uphold the citizens' rights and still do your job, still ask the relevant questions. Like, for instance, you can't be arrested for a traffic offense if you refuse to give your name and address.
Okay.
Yeah, so if it is that you don't have a driver's permit,
right,
and the officer asks you, you're driving a vehicle, and he asks you for your name and you refuse, I
Right.
have to answer you, you will be arrested.
I mean, to some extent, this also includes not having a driver's permit on you while you're driving.
Correct.
You're not supposed to be doing that, right?
No, you're not supposed to be doing that.
I'll just say this.
Even the front seat passenger doesn't have on their seatbelt. The officer asks you your information, driver's name and address. You can be arrested if you refuse to give that information.
Right, because just to be clear,
committing a traffic
you're already
offense.
committing a traffic offense and then you're trying to withhold
And failing
information.
to give the officer your name and address, having committed a traffic offense, you can be arrested for that.
Is that like a further charge? Or is that just like an escalation of the existing?
Yeah, of course, yes. That's a further charge. So you have the principal charge of maybe failing to wear your seatbelt, and then you have failing to give your name and address.
And I would just like to point out, because I watch it because I'm interested in the politics abroad because of different things, and one of that includes defunding the police and the state of policing in places like North America. And there are people who audit the police who push back against overreach. One of the things is when it's appropriate to have to give out your ID or not. But I just like to caution people who also watch similar things. That's there.
That is the thing, yeah.
This is here.
Because I've experienced
different laws.
I've experienced persons being in a road traffic accident in Trinidad and Tobago, and they would tell you, well, I was just in an accident and the driver drove off, and he said, okay, we exchanged documents, and he said he will make the report another day. Now, the law is that once you're in a road traffic accident, without delay, you must dispatch yourself to the nearest police station or your police officer in uniform and make a report, right? There may be reasonable circumstances that would allow you not to do that. You may have an emergency, like a medical emergency, and you have to, right. And there would be persons who say, isn't that illegal? And it's not. So they tell you, officer, isn't that you're supposed to stay at the scene of an accident when you have an accident? No, that's not the law.
Right.
It's the law in other jurisdictions.
Right.
So maybe in California, USA, it's the law that you stay at the scene of an accident until the police respond. In Trinidad and Tobago, it's not. But you must exchange documents, you must render aid, you must, without delay, dispatch yourself to the nearest police station or your officer in uniform.
I mean, if I've seen a car overturn on the highway and be on its roof, obviously that person's just not going anywhere.
No.
Right?
That person needs medical attention.
I think they may have survived, right? But regardless, if we have a fender bender, we don't need to just stay in the middle of the road.
No, you don't.
We could both go. That's happened to me before.
You come out, you take a picture quickly, you mark your spot, and you move on to the nearest police station.
Just a fun fact: the most frequent traffic accident I've been in is being hit from behind by somebody. When I am at a complete stop, I don't know what it is, but that has happened to me more often than not on the same road. I think it happened to me 3 times.
Right.
And the inconvenience of, now I have to go to the police station.
It could be simple as the color of your vehicle.
Well, the first one was red, now it's white.
Right.
But actually, first one was white, now it's red.
Right. Studies have shown that silver painted vehicles tend to be in less road traffic accidents as other painted vehicles.
So all of us that are not driving a silver car, we're in the wrong color. All right, I want to thank the callers for calling in, especially giving us those good insights. Oh, one thing I would like to say with regards to Digger Martin, I'm not too sure if we're spending a lot of money to look into the Brent Thomas affair. Right? I just I'm not sure exactly where you're gonna. I don't think that bill is gonna be that high, to be honest. In fact, if we're looking into what happened with Brent Thomas, I'll be pleasantly surprised. I'll leave that right there. But thanks for calling in anyway. Also, the Prime Minister is not wrong. There are bad apples. Our media ambassadors admitted themselves. I think the key is how he said it, how he framed it, the implications of his communications. You know, was it accurate enough? That could be debated another time. Thank you, SP Arun, for joining me once again.
Thanks. And just to extend public safety information to the members of the public, it's carnival time. We are approaching the carnival period. To try and be safe, operate safely, operate in groups. Don't go out, venture out in the dark, venture out in the night by yourself. And even though, remember, although these things are public and there are a lot of people around, don't venture out by yourself in that particular area.
In a lonely corner of the fence. Yeah. Don't do that. Don't go around the wall where nobody has vision of. Yeah. Also, just shout out to the Caribbean airline pilots. I believe it was yesterday, Monday night, there was an engine failure on final approach to land, and they called Mayday, but they were able to land safely. It's not things that happen very frequently here, but again, we have a safety record that is essentially spotless for a reason. So kudos to the efforts of the cabin crew and the pilots that managed to overcome that situation safely.
Can I extend condolences?
Sure.
Over the weekend, a good friend of mine died. He was 69 years old. He was cutting a tree, La Salle, Beach area, Caratal and Beach, and the tree fell on him.
This is the individual that made the news?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. His name was Anthony Morales.
Okay.
Very good friend of mine. He used to drive, I knew him over 20 years ago, and he used to work taxi in St. James, from Tragedy Road to St. James, yeah. And he was also a cricket umpire. I haven't seen him in probably 20 years, but I understand. I would like to extend condolences to the family. I know it would be difficult at this time.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I try not to keep track of all of the deaths that are reported in news for various reasons, because, I mean, I still can't get over my family member who died from COVID years ago, right? So, but folks, condolences again, and remember to stay safe out there. Make today a good day. Do your best, but you have to help yourself and others. If we come together, we can make it if we try, as Mr. Shah would say. Remember your allegiance to the Republic, our twin islands. It's nice to be nice. Never forget. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Hi, I'm Claudette, radiographer at the radiology departments at the community hospital. We offer high-quality service with state-of-the-art equipment in X-ray, ultrasound, CT, and mammogram. Come, our friendly staff awaits you.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments.